Good morning, everyone. This is Ed Cranich from the Connecticut Green Bank. Just wanted to let you know we'll be getting started in just a few minutes as we wait for more folks to log on. So sit tight and we'll start in about 3 minutes. Thanks. Okay, looks like everyone's just about signed on now, so we can get started. So to answer the first question, yes, we will be recording this, and yes, we will share a copy of the recording and the slides. So welcome everyone and good morning. Thanks for joining us today. The Connecticut Green Bank, Eversource, and UI welcome you to our introduction of the Energy Storage Solutions Program, our second introduction, this one for contractors specifically. We're very excited to share this presentation with you all today and show you what we've been working on. My name is Ed Cranich. I'm a Senior Manager of Incentives at the Connecticut Green Bank. And today we will be joined by Sergio Carrillo, the Director of Incentive Programs at the Green Bank, Joe Kopelik, Manager of Conservation and Load Management at UI, and Emma Saavedra, Senior Associate of Incentive Programs with the Connecticut Green Bank. We do not have a representative from Eversource with us today, but if there are any specific questions for them, we can certainly follow up after the presentation. And we also do have Jim Mader, Senior Manager of Smart Grids, Innovation and Planning with UI on the line for support for any other questions that we might have. So next slide, the agenda. So our agenda today is to just start with a program overview. I think some of you may have joined us for our introduction last week, but for those who haven't, we'll give a little bit more condensed version of that presentation, followed by some demonstrations specific to contractors. So we'll start with the overview, go through the residential market and commercial and industrial market and incentives. We'll talk about the program rollout specific for contractors and eligible system owners. Then we will give a demo of the contractor application, which is the form that you all will need to submit in order to become eligible to work in this program. And then we can go over questions. So with that, I will pass it off to Sergio Carrillo.
Thank you, Ed. And good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is Sergio Carrillo with the Green Bank. What you're going to see today is the culmination of 2 years of work, including hearings, testimonies, interrogatories, written exceptions, orders from PURA that I'm sure many of you participated in. The final product of these 2 years is a program that seeks to deploy 580 megawatts of battery storage in Connecticut over the next 9 years. I wanted to take a minute to thank our partners throughout this process. Pura Chairman Marisa Gillette, Director Josh Ryer, and the entire Pura staff for their leadership. The utilities Eversource and United Illuminating for their engagement all these months and for the intense collaboration with the Green Bank. To the Green Bank staff involved in this project, it's many people, I cannot name them all, but they know who they are, so thank you. And to all stakeholders, public, private, nonprofit, academic participants who in one way or another helped shape the energy storage solutions program. Next slide, please. One more. Thank you. So when Pura issued the straw proposal in docket 171203, reopener 03, the battery storage docket back in January, they set 4 key objectives. Number one was cost effectiveness, to ensure that there was net benefit to all electric customers, and to that end, we developed a program that delivers a ratepayer impact measure, or RIM, of 1.4, meaning that the benefits of the program over the 9 years are 1.4 times greater than the costs of administering the program, which translates in no cost shifting to non-participating ratepayers. The second objective was resilience, to maximize the deployment of battery storage to improve the overall resilience to program participants and the grid. And we designed the program where all projects can provide resiliency by powering homes and businesses during power outages. Additionally, the program allows for the ownership and monetization of capacity rights in the forward capacity markets in the ISO New England for customer classes deemed most at risk. Those are customers located in the grid edge, C&I customers with on-site fossil fuel generation, critical facilities, and small businesses. The third objective was ensuring access to vulnerable communities. And we developed a program that targets 40% deployment in underserved communities, those located in distressed municipalities, and also includes multifamily affordable housing and low-income communities, those under 60% area median income. And the fourth objective was economic development, administering a program that fosters the sustained orderly development of a local battery storage industry. This program is overseen by Pura, is paid for by Connecticut ratepayers, and co-administered by the Green Bank and the utilities, the Eversource and United Illuminating. So where are we right now? We're working on the last few aspects of the program that required additional guidance, and we will be making a series of filings with Pura this week and next week. All pieces are coming together, and the program will be available January 1st. So now let me turn it over to Joel Koplik, Manager of Conservation and Load Management with United Illuminating.
Oh,
There we go. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Joel Koplik with United Illuminating. I'm here to give a very high-level overview of the Energy Storage Solutions program and design. As Sergio stated, the program has a statewide goal of 580 megawatts deployed over a 9-year period from 2022 to 2030. So we'll be starting up very, very soon. We've been fast and furious, certainly putting the final touches on a lot of the things that you'll be able to take advantage of. It is part of a larger 1,000 megawatt statewide goal, which includes DEEP's 460 megawatt front of the meter initiative. This program will have a declining incentive structure, meaning that the incentives for early adopters will be higher. And as time goes on and we get to more critical mass, those incentives will decrease over time for customers that are coming on in the later years. We'll explain that more in depth certainly later in the presentation, but really hoping to come out of the gate swinging really strong with our incentive programs that the customers can take advantage of. As you can see here, the program goals are broken up into three-year cycles. The first cycle being 2022 to 2024. We have a goal of 100 megawatts split evenly between residential and our commercial and industrial customers. As well in the second 3-year cycle, a goal of 200 megawatts statewide, and the third cycle being 280 megawatts, adding up to that 580 megawatt goal certainly. Next slide, please. So I'll give a high-level overview here of the proposed program design. We'll go into a little bit more depth, certainly in later slides, but want to give an overview of the different customer classes and the energy dispatch strategies to help participants earn upfront and ongoing incentives. So with regard to customer classes, they're broken up broadly into residential and commercial and industrial. As Sergio had mentioned before, the residential customer classes are standard customers. Those are customers that are going to be above the 60% of the state median income, not living in a distressed community. We also have the underserved customers. Those are those customers that are living in a distressed community as defined by the Department of Economic and Community Development. They are also customers who live in affordable multifamily housing as contemplated by General Statute 16-244Z. And then our third subset of residential customers are our low-income households, so households that earn less than 60% of the state median income. It's important to note, in the spirit of equity, certainly for program inclusion, as well as meeting the goals that Sergio had mentioned, 40% of our residential customers' participation coming from our underserved and low-income communities, that the underserved and low-income participants will have enhanced upfront incentives to help break down some of those barriers that might exist with regards to adoption of these types of technologies within those communities. Again, we'll go more into that. On the C&I side, our customers are also broken up into 3 different segments. We have small, medium, and large customers. Our small customers are defined as being under 200 kilowatts of average monthly demand. Medium customers are going to be between 200 and 500 kilowatts of average monthly demand, and larger customers being over 500 kilowatts of average monthly demand. Similar to the residential side, we're going to have a sliding scale for the upfront incentives. We really want to promote equity within our commercial and industrial component as well. Typically, small and medium businesses do have more difficult time, more limited resources to participate in these types of programs. So there's some stuff built into the program design to help make it easier to break down those barriers. With regards to incentives, we've mentioned a bit about that. There's 2 different incentives that the customers can take advantage of, or the systems that are enrolled through this program can take advantage of. There's the upfront incentives and then the ongoing performance-based incentives. The upfront incentives, in order to receive those, the customers are going to be required to participate in our passive dispatch strategy. This is going to be a set it and forget it type of strategy where the battery is scheduled to discharge up to 80% of its capacity on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, during the summer months of June, July, and August. The event duration will be 5 hours in length. It'll be a uniform dispatch across those 5 hours between 3 and 8 p.m. And the intent there is to lower the overall demand during the time and season that the electric distribution companies and ISO New England experiences their general peaks, right? So the intent here is to bring down that demand. It's going to save money, purchasing power from the grid for the electric distribution companies. It's going to potentially defer costs for the EDCs, as more and more electric load comes onto the system, as decarbonization takes place, certainly. So the intent with the passive dispatch is to really hit at that goal of the program that PIRA set out, which is to provide net benefit to all ratepayers, not just participants, but all ratepayers. So that's a little bit of detail on the upfront incentive. Again, we'll get more into some specific examples so you can kind of visualize what that's going to look like for the customer. But we also have the performance-based incentive, which is going to be centered around active dispatch of the assets that are in the field. The EDCs are going to call active dispatch events based upon some sort of market signal, right? It could be a anticipated hourly peak forecast out of the ISO New England market. That can really set the tone for electric prices for a set period of time in a specific region. So all of our demand response efforts to date with our different programs are really going after this estimated hourly load. So we have the ability, or will have the ability, to supersede the passive dispatch setting and call an active dispatch setting. We can call up to from 30 to 60 active events during the summer season and up to 5 during the winter season. This is going to be a shorter duration event, right? It's going to be, rather than a 5-hour event that's spreading out the battery's capacity over that 5-hour period. This is going to be much more targeted. It's going to be a shorter duration event, and it's going to be a deeper discharge of the battery up to 100% of the capacity. And the intent there, again, is to hit that hourly peak, which really can be a significant driver in overall electricity prices. With the intent there, again, sticking to the tenet that we want to make sure that this program is beneficial to all ratepayers, not just the participants. The benefit for the participants certainly is that active demand response component and the performance-based incentives that come along with it. So the customers will be paid an annual incentive for a period of 10 years based upon their participation in the active events. So it's going to be an average of all events across the season, and they'll be paid out at the end of each season, certainly. Next slide. So this is a visualization of the passive dispatch schedule. Like I said, set it and forget it. This is going to be scheduled through the DERMS, the demand response management system that the EDCs are in contract with. A signal is going to be sent to the OEM, battery manufacturer, to set this passive dispatch schedule. Again, between the hours of 3 and 8 p.m., June, July, and August, and I'm sorry, I just got distracted. So, the customer's not going to have to think about it. They're not going to have to worry about it. It's just going to be a 5-hour event. Next slide. All right, so this is a visualization of how they're going to interact together, right? So we talked about how there's going to be passive dispatch set up 5 days a week during the summer. There's a couple holidays in there that that we wouldn't call an event on, but the active is, like I said before, is going to supersede these passive dispatch setups. So when the EDCs are monitoring the ISO New England market or whatever else it might be that requires an active event, we will have the ability to turn off that passive dispatch setting through the OEM, through our DERMS provider, and then initiate that active dispatch. Again, much more targeted, much more intense discharge of the battery assets to really affect the goal that we're going after, certainly. So this here shows you on Monday, we've got a standard passive dispatch. The battery dispatch is down to 80% or down to 20%. over a 5-hour period. Okay, it's going to be 98 degrees tomorrow on Tuesday. It's going to be 98% humidity. We're expecting a ton of people to be flipping their AC on when they get home at 6 p.m. We're going to call an active dispatch event to really impact the peak load coming onto the system. So again, we try to we're going to give 24-hour notice for active dispatch events when we can. It's going to flow from our DERMS provider to the OEM and then to the customer to let them know that their passive setting will be bypassed and an active dispatch event is going to be occurring. So I hope this helps from a visualization perspective to understand, how active is going to work against passive. So with that, I'm pretty much, I think, covered everything I need to. I'm going to pass it over to Ed Kranich from the Connecticut Green Bank, who kicked us off. He's going to give more detail on the customer classes, as I alluded to, incentive structures, and most importantly, how you can get involved. And I really, really appreciate the participation today. This is going to be a huge program. There's been a lot of resources that we've been dedicating to this. We're so excited to be part of this and really looking forward to making this a success with you. Over to you, Ed.
All right, thanks a lot, Joel. All right, so next slide, and we will get into the residential market segments. So our residential target markets are pretty broad and most importantly inclusive, as Sergio had mentioned, but they're well defined. So we want to ensure that all Connecticut ratepayers can benefit from this program. So in our customer classes, we have the standard rate or non-low income customers. In Connecticut, just looking at the amount of owner-occupied homes that sit in this market, it's over 500,000. So it's a pretty large market. It's more broad than just solar. There are more people interested in battery backup and resilience than those who are necessarily a good site for solar. So I know a lot of the contractors on the call today are solar, and it's a great pairing, but we're looking beyond just pairing with PV. So next in our customer class, we have the underserved residential customers. Those are defined, I think, pretty clearly now as just customers located in distressed municipalities as defined by Connecticut DECD, the Department of Economic and Community Development. So we will, of course, once the program launches and we have all the materials available for you, we will certainly include a list of qualified communities that fall under that distressed municipalities list, so you can qualify customers as underserved to access that slightly higher incentive. And then finally, low-income customers. So those are defined as those whose income is less than 60% of the area median income, or for those in affordable housing facilities, affordable housing multifamily facilities, which is a state definition. For priority customers, these don't necessarily get an elevated incentive unless they qualify under underserved or low income, but they are a priority for us and for the utilities. And those are grid edge customers, so those who experience greater frequency and duration of power outages, and those in vulnerable communities, so those who are in environmental justice communities, again, underserved customers who don't usually get to benefit from these types of programs. And so, as I had just mentioned earlier, we are targeting deploying these batteries both paired with PV, existing and new. So new customers who will be participating in the tariff, and existing customers who may have participated in the RCIF program. There's about 42,000 RCIP installed systems from the last 10 years. So, there is certainly a market out there for those who may want to add a battery to their existing PV system. And then for the second channel of customers, we are looking at standalone. So those who would install a battery without pairing it with PV or any other type of DG, and who start through the channel of HES or energy efficiency, who are looking to decrease the loads in their home and at the same time increase resilience. So when you decrease your loads, then you can get more out of the battery that you install. So next slide, please. So as Joel had mentioned earlier, the incentives are split into two categories: upfront for passive dispatch, the set it and forget it, and performance-based for active dispatch. So our upfront incentive levels will go in steps similar to those who are familiar with RCIP, based on a total approved capacity. The first step will be 10 megawatts, then 15, and then 25 for steps 2 and 3 as we ramp up. We expect these steps to be active through the first years of the program, so from 2022 through 2024. So approximately one step per year as things ramp up. So the incentives for residential customers are set for standard rate, and then underserved are 150% of the standard rate, and low income are 200% of the standard rate. The step 1 upfront incentives are 200, 300, and 400, and we expect that step 1 will accommodate up to about 1,400 residential customers, assuming each will be about a 14 kilowatt hour project. So maybe, that's about one Powerwall in size. The performance incentives, as mentioned earlier, they are the same for every type of customer, no matter what. So whether it's commercial, residential, low income, underserved. So the performance incentives will stay the same, but the upfront incentive levels are what depend on the type of customer and the subcategory of customer. Next slide, please. So here are just some kind of informational incentive examples here. So in the first block, a single Powerwall type system would get about a $2,700 incentive for a standard market rate customer, and then up to $5,400 for low income customers. Obviously you could do the math if customers installing more than one of these batteries or, a different category. But the incentive is calculated at, as I mentioned, $200, $300, $400, and that's per kilowatt hour of capacity in the battery. So note that these values are considering standalone batteries only. So when we talk about the total value of incentives, it doesn't include the federal ITC, which could apply to batteries when paired with a PV system generator, when it's being charged by the PV. So the value to residential customers can be even greater when you're pairing with PV, assuming that it's configured properly. And finally, here we have the maximum value of the performance incentive levels. Again, this is assuming over the life of participation in the performance in the active dispatch. So this is 5 years of incentives, assuming that they participate for every kilowatt that the battery can put out for every single event, assuming something over 60 events per year. So next slide, please. And one more. So now for the commercial and industrial target markets. So the C&I market is first divided into 3 customer classes based on peak annual demand. Small C&I customers are up to 200 kilowatts of peak demand per year. Medium are 200 up to 500, and large are 500 or more kilowatts of peak demand per year. This can be determined from looking at the customer's annual usage history, which is either available on their electric bill or you can download it from the utility. So as with residential, we're simultaneously targeting sites with new or existing PV and sites that have standalone storage that come through energy efficiency channels. Excuse me. So for priority customers, we have small C&I and small business, critical facilities, which are defined as hospital, fire station, water treatment plant, public shelter, correctional facility. Lots of critical facilities fall under this definition. So again, this is a state definition by law, so it's something that we can post and you can look into to target these types of facilities for doing these installations. And of course, grid edge customers, those who experience the greater frequency and duration of power outages, and C&I customers who are replacing fossil fuel generators. So these priority customers can retain their capacity rights, and there will be a process through the customer enrollment where they can note that they want to retain their capacity rights to participate in those markets. So there will be a process developed over the next month or so as the customer enrollment is rolled out, whereby these customers can note that they want to participate in these markets going forward. So next slide. Next slide to the incentives. Okay, I'm not seeing the slide advance, so maybe it's stuck on my screen. So I'll just speak to it. So for the commercial incentive levels, as will be shown on the screen, they're broken up by small, medium, and large, which we had described previously are based on annual peak demand. The incentives for small commercial and small business are the same as the standard residential rate. There's no underserved or low income adder for these incentives, but small commercial will be $200 per kilowatt hour of installed capacity, medium will be $175 per kilowatt hour, and large will be $100 per kilowatt hour. And of course, the performance incentive levels will stay the same. It's also important to note that with the residential incentive, there is a limitation on the total incentive to be paid out, and it's capped at $7,500 for the residential upfront incentive, but there is no cap on the commercial upfront incentive. Next slide to, okay, looks like we're getting set up here. So next slide to number 18, that's the energy storage solutions rollout.
Ed, can you take control of the slideshow?
Sure. Yeah, it looks like we're just having a little technical issue here. So let me just.
I don't know if it's on Amos. And
let's try. I'm not able to take control. Rob, you might have to help us out here. Okay. Just a minute. Okay, can everyone see my screen here with the commercial incentive values?
yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right, sorry about that. So let me jump to the next one here. So next we will go into the energy storage solutions rollout, which we will be doing over the next couple of weeks. Sergio said we're expected to launch January 1st, which is a Saturday and a holiday, but nonetheless, we are expected to make things available. As as Sergio had indicated earlier in the presentation, we're still working very hard on some of the finer details. So some of the details like inspections and completion of projects and some of the specifics on payout of the incentive will be kind of filed down in the next couple of weeks or months early in 2022. But we will have the program open and available on January 1st. So we've been all working on our individual program websites, so Eversource, UI, and the Green Bank. We're compiling resources for contractors, system owners, and customers over the next couple of weeks. We will have resources available to show the currently approved equipment that can be used in this program. So, as you know, the hardware has to be able to communicate with the DERMS platform. So there is kind of a requirement there and a little bit of a hurdle for some manufacturers to get their equipment qualified for this incentive. But we are working with OEMs. We've been talking with a few different companies to try to get them prepared ahead of time, so there won't be any delay in getting certain products installed. So the program manual next, which is really the most important piece of the program to guide us all, is still under development. It's slated to be filed. Its due date with PURA is December 20th, so next Monday coming up. We expect to hear back from them about a week or so later, and then after that we'll have a few days to, assuming it's been approved, then we can file it on the website and get everyone up to speed on really how the program's going to work. So we hope to have that ready to go very shortly. So the contractor application is almost ready to start taking applications from prospective contractors, you folks on the line. We are wrapping up testing, and we're going to do a demo just after this. So we'll show you a demo of what that will include in a moment. And finally, the customer enrollment platform. So this is going to be kind of analogous to PowerClerk for those of you who worked in the RCIP program. It's not going to be built on PowerClerk. We actually built our own software for it, something a little simpler. But it will look and feel kind of similar to that. And we expect to have that ready. We're testing it now, and we're going to start testing it with some other folks, some outside folks, in the next week. And we hope to have a working version of that by the beginning of January, so that we can start taking applications. And we will certainly be fine-tuning it and accepting feedback over the coming weeks. So I'm going to pause my screen for a moment here. Actually, after this slide. So how to participate. So as a contractor or third-party system owner, we will send out an email to contractors and participants in this webinar on when the application will be available for you to apply to become eligible, because again, that's the first step before being able to submit incentive projects. And what you can do in the meantime is prepare docs for your application. So that's going to be your licensing, your E1, your HIC if you're a home improvement contractor, not if you're commercial, that wouldn't apply. Bank reference letter, subcontracting agreements, manufacturer certification. So we will require that installers show which manufacturers they are certified to install, which battery equipment they can install. References for new contractors only, sales agreement templates. And again, it's important to note, if you have any projects that have been already sold or you're in the process of installing, do not energize them prior to incentive approval, because we won't be able to offer an upfront incentive. So anything that's already been installed that hasn't received any other type of incentive can apply if it's eligible. It can apply for the performance incentive, but not for the upfront. So at this time, I'm going to pause my screen and pull up the contractor application so we can show you what that looks like. Okay. And Sergio, can you just confirm you can see the application on the screen here?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this page will be built into the Green Bank website. So again, we'll have a link for that when it's available. So for those of you who have worked in CPACE, you'll notice this is very similar. Rob did a great job building this. It looks just like CPACE, so it's got a similar look and feel. And it's not paper or email like the RCIP application, so it's a little bit easier. You can save your progress and resume later if you want, so you don't have to do it all at one time. But it will be broken out by contractor, third-party owner, or both if you're a company that does both. So we'll start with a contractor example here. We'll have you select the types of customers that you serve. And again, this will affect some of the information that you need to upload. So if you're residential, you may have to upload an HIC if you don't have an E1 license. But if you're commercial, you won't have to. So we'll start with the residential. Let's say you offer purchase. If you participate in any other Connecticut Green Bank programs, you will not have to upload customer references because those won't be necessary. So we'll say for an RCIP contractor, and then depending on the type of equipment that you can install, you can select this and then upload your certification. So again, it's pretty straightforward. So you'll upload your E1 license, tell us who it is. If it's a subcontractor, you'll have to upload a subcontracting agreement. Anyone who does not have an E1 license to the company must have a home improvement contractor registration if you are a residential contractor. If you're not, then you don't have to upload that information. But again, here's just an idea of some of the things that we'll require. So your insurance, of course, your manufacturer equipment certification based on what you have selected as what you offer, bank reference letter, sample of your sales contract, workmanship warranty, and then you can build your profile. So you can have a profile on the Connecticut Green Bank website so customers can find you. So that's about it. It's pretty straightforward. And again, we'll have some more information about that as it is launched and becomes available. So with that, let me just pause my screen for a moment here. And with that, we will get to questions.
This is Emma. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I was having some internet issues. Okay. So a question that I've seen a few times is if this incentive will replace the existing connected solutions incentive. So somebody
Joel, do you want to take that one, or Jim?
What was the question? It was about the existing
connected solution? Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, someone from Eversource isn't here. But Jim, correct me if I'm wrong on this, or Sergio, anyone. Customers will have the ability to enroll in this program, but only in the active demand response component. There will be no upfront incentives available for customers who have already purchased and installed battery storage systems, either under the Connected Solutions program or really even if you were just an early adopter of the technology and didn't utilize any incentives to purchase the product. Jim, or Sergio, is that correct?
Yeah, actually, Joel, hi, Jim. That's the way I understand it as well.
Okay.
We can definitely confirm that with Eversource, but that's my understanding.
Joel, but my understanding is that I mean, it doesn't replace connected solutions.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like Eversource plans to run connected solutions for those customers who would rather go that route.
Mm-hmm. Correct. And I think the difference between the two is that connected solutions obviously would not have a passive dispatch requirement. So anybody that just wanted to do active, that would be the route that they would go.
Yeah, and the passive and the upfront incentive associated with it, right? With the passive dispatch.
Correct. Yeah. I hope that answers the question. We can get more clarification on that from Eversource, though.
Okay, so we'll follow up with that. And then there's a few questions about active dispatch. So somebody asked what criteria is used to determine if an active dispatch event is either 1, 2, or 3 hours, and what do the utilities expect will be the most common or the average duration?
I think in general, the most common is going to be the 3-hour event. It's very hard to predict the single moment that the peak is going to occur, right? So we'll get a forecast from ISO New England stating that the peak is expected to occur at 6:07 p.m. or something like that, right? So we're going to want to run the active dispatch from the hours of 5, 6, and 7 p.m. in that scenario to ensure that we capture that full peak load hour. So my expectation, and I think the customer's expectation, should be set that 3 hours is likely to be the most common. And then, we do leave open the potential for other strategies, but at this point, I'd expect 3 hours.
Okay, great. And then this question, maybe Ed or Sergio, you can answer this. Will there be performance incentives after 5 years? And what is the expected price per kilowatt rate?
Yes, there will be performance incentives for 10 years. The compensation, the incentive level is set. I don't know if we showed that slide. But yes, the performance incentives are going to be flat for the first 5 years. It's set at $200 per kW for summers. And in the second 5 years of the programs, meaning year 6 to 10, the compensation is going to be $115 per kilowatt. That's the summer compensation. And the winter compensation is going to be $25 per kW for the first 5 years. And that drops to $15 per kW in the second 5 years of the program. So yes, it is set, and it will be available in the program manual.
Okay, great. And there were a few questions about the concern of customers not having enough capacity during a power outage, since that would be the main purpose for their interest in the batteries in the first place. So how would we handle that?
So we've written into this is Joel with United Illuminating. We've written into the program manual and basically our rules of engagement, if you will, that any time that the EDCs are anticipating any sort of storm event that kicks off our emergency restoration process, our ERP process, levels 1 through 5, we would suspend all active and passive dispatch events from the moment from the moment that we declare or are expecting an event through the duration of the storm, so that the battery is available for resiliency purposes.
Okay, great. And there was a question about what DERMS platform we will be using, and there was a question, who should we get our preferred technology vendors in touch with? So I don't know if that's something that we would like to prepare, maybe send out some different contacts for our DERMS.
Yeah, so I would, you know, and I'm going to speak for United Illuminating. I would prefer that any interested technology vendors get in touch with the program administrators, right? So contact United Illuminating, so myself or someone that's on the program team, you know, same for Eversource, and we'll get you connected with the DERMS platform provider. There is going to be a process for introducing new technology into the program, you know, with significant input from the DERMS provider with regards to what they require for communications and things like that. But I think in the very short term, outside of that formal process, feel free to reach out to us and we'll get you connected with the right people and the right processes to introduce new technology into the program, certainly. Sergio, are you on board with, I mean, is that fair?
Excellent. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So this question would be directed towards Connecticut Green Bank. So if a contractor is already approved for the RFID program, do they have to re-register for this program?
That is a good question, and yes. However, some of the application will be shortened a little bit. So as I showed, you don't have to have customer references. You know, if we know that you've been a good participant in another program, a Green Bay program, you know, we know who you are. So it's more the formality of getting everything uploaded so that it can all be in our new repository for all contractor contractor documentation and info. So we anticipate that, you know, if you apply on a Monday, you should definitely have heard back by Friday. You know, depending on volume, as things get going right away, you know, it'll probably be, you know, on the 5-day end of it. But you know, we'll do our best to get everything approved as quickly as possible, especially if we have an existing relationship with you. So.
Okay, great. And then this question was posed a few times. Can people opt out of a daily event if they need to prioritize a load?
Yeah, so out of a daily event for for the passive dispatch, I believe there are parameters. I'm sorry. Yeah, I believe there's parameters within the program manual that allow for a certain number of opt-outs of the daily dispatch. But at some point, it becomes, you know, because this is such an integral part to the net benefit to all ratepayers, you know, there is a clawback mechanism contemplated for that upfront incentive, right, for customers that aren't meeting the requirements of that incentive. On the active dispatch side, customers do have the ability to opt out, but it is going to negatively affect their end of year performance incentive, right? They're going to receive a 0 for that day, and it's going to skew the average downward for them if they don't participate. So, you know, certainly we would encourage all customers, and in general, in our other demand response programs, we have very low opt-out rates, so we don't necessarily expect it, but do know that there are potential repercussions from an incentive perspective for customers that do opt out of events.
Okay, and then there were a few questions about the clarification of islanding. And one question was asking, are there any islanding or microgrid requirements for specifically C&I applicants?
Hi, Emma, this is Sarah Harry with the Green Bank. I actually just want to jump in and add some clarification on what Joel just said. There's questions about sort of what happens if you don't participate in the active dispatch and what happens if you don't participate in the passive dispatch. And so for commercial industrial customers, there will be an option to only enroll in active dispatch if you don't want to participate in passive. If you do accept the upfront incentive and choose to participate in passive dispatch, everything Joel said holds true. We will be clawing back parts of the incentive if you're not able to participate in those events. If you sign up to participate in the active and passive dispatch event, it's our understanding that you will be participating in all events. And again, that's because, as I'd said at the top, you know, the program is designed by PURA to ensure and that is a cost-efficient program, and so the benefits are being generated by all ratepayers. And to get those benefits, we really need to be able to get those dispatches. So a certain amount will be allowed, but and without extenuating circumstances, we're expecting all systems to participate in passive and active dispatches that take those incentives. Sorry, Emma, can you restate the question that you just asked?
So the question was about the clarification of the islanding and the microgrid requirements, if that's required for C&I customers.
Sure, I can keep answering questions. So as per the most recent decision from PURA, yes, all systems in this program are required to be able to island. That's to ensure that the resilience benefits that PURA is seeking really accrue to those customers. So that pertains to both residential and commercial industrial customers.
And with regard to microgrid, I think that's implying, does there have to be some sort of on-site generation, whether it be solar or something else? That's not a requirement. There can be standalone battery systems. I hope that's the intent of the question and answers that.
Okay, and then another question was, can existing solar PV net meter customers retrofit to add batteries?
Yes, they can. They would have to be, technically capable. So they may have, if they have to reconfigure any part of their PV system, then they would have to do that, and that would be at their own cost. But yes, as long as your battery can meet the eligibility requirements, yes.
Okay. And somebody asked, can you share the contact information of the program administrator at each utility? And that's something that we'll post on the website. So just keep an eye out for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we probably have time for a couple more questions. So there will also be a list of the current acceptable battery and inverter manufacturers on our website as well. We're working on building that out. And same with the program manual, the program rules. Those will be available on our website as well. Okay. So a question, will there be penalties if the equipment is not being maintained? So
I guess maintained meaning not functioning. Well, the equipment will have to be in working order, and I think when the program guidelines or the program manual is posted, there is there's two sections in there, in the contractor requirements, and I believe it's in the equipment requirements, and then it has to be able to participate. So that's up to the equipment to be able to meet the demands and the contractor to meet workmanship warranty requirements, but the equipment has to be capable of participating in active and passive dispatch for 10 years. So I think maintenance falls into there, maybe indirectly. If that doesn't answer your question, please restate it in the questions. Maybe we can jump to one more. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Great. Somebody was asking, is there going to be a queue for the DERMS platform submission? And how long does that process usually take to onboard a new storage provider? technology?
So this is Joel with UI. I don't know that we know the answer to that. I'd want to get back on that. I do anticipate that there could potentially be a queue if there's multiple technology providers looking to get approved within the respective DERM system, but I don't know what a typical lead time is on that. That is something we can certainly pan the DERMS providers for and answer, at a later date, relatively soon.
Hey, and Joel, this is Jim Made from UI as well. Just to add to that, we are working on a process to collect for people to apply to add new technologies for the DERMS platform to actually be able to communicate to and leverage. So as Joel pointed out, we are still kind of finalizing that process. And as part of that, we'll look to see what the timeframes are.
All right, I think that might have to do it for questions. We are at time now. We will certainly collect the questions, and if there's anything that has gone unanswered, we will get to it when we send out the update. But we will send out the slides and a copy of the presentation probably by early next week. So just wanted to thank everyone again for joining us, contractors. We will be in touch about the contractor application in the coming weeks. And thanks to Emma, Sergio, Joel, Jim, and Sarah for presenting and answering questions. So thanks everyone, and have a great day.